The Silent Centuries. The Great Hall of the Galactic Trade Council stretched across 2 kilometers of polished crystal. Representatives from 47 different worlds sat in curved rows, their voices creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and rumbles that somehow translated into meaningful debate. At the center of it all, High Arbiter Zelkos raised his scaled hand for silence. The massive reptilian being stood 3 meters tall, his golden robes marking him as leader of the Dominion Council. His yellow eyes scanned the assembly as conversations died away. Behind him, a holographic display showed the galaxy divided into colored sections, each representing different trade zones and territorial claims. "We gather today to discuss expansion into Sector 7 Alpha," Zelkos announced, his voice carrying across the hall without amplification. "The region has remained untouched for 4 centuries. It is time we claimed its resources." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Everyone knew about Sector 7 Alpha. It was the dead space where Earth used to orbit its yellow sun. The humans had vanished during the Great War of 2387, leaving behind nothing but empty space and unanswered questions. Ambassador Crix of the Peaceful Coalition shifted nervously in her seat. Her blue skin shimmered as she stood to address the council. "High Arbiter, that region carries significant historical importance. Perhaps we should approach with caution." "Historical importance?" Zelkos scoffed. "The humans destroyed themselves 400 years ago. What history remains worth preserving?" In the back of the hall, Commander Vera Cross pulled her hood lower over her face. She was one of the few humans left in the galaxy, descended from those who had escaped Earth before the disappearance. Her grandmother had told her stories about the blue world, about oceans and forests and cities that touched the sky. But those were just stories now. Vera piloted a cargo ship between the outer colonies, trading in salvage and rare minerals. The other species tolerated her because they needed her services, but she was always reminded that she was different. Her pale skin and brown hair marked her as something that should no longer exist. "Commander Cross," a voice whispered beside her. She turned to see Dr. Marcus Chen, an elderly human scientist who served as a technical advisor to the council. His white hair was thin, and his eyes held the sadness of someone who had lost everything twice. "They want to strip mine the Sol system," Marcus whispered. "Turn it into industrial platforms and mining stations." Vera felt anger rise in her chest. "Can they do that legally? Who's going to stop them? We're the last of our kind, Vera. 24 humans scattered across a galaxy that wants to forget we ever existed." The debate continued for hours. Some species argued for immediate colonization. Others suggested caution. But everyone agreed on one thing. The Sol system was empty, dead, and ready for exploitation. That consensus lasted exactly 47 hours. Captain Thane Korvik was conducting a routine patrol along the edge of Dominion space when his sensors detected something impossible. The insectoid officer's compound eyes focused on the readings streaming across his ship's displays. His forearms moved rapidly over the controls, double-checking every measurement. "Communications, send immediate priority signal to High Command," Thane ordered. His crew of 6 different species worked frantically at their stations. "Tell them we have massive energy readings from Sector 7 Alpha." "How massive, Captain?" asked his human-descended navigator, Ensign Torres. Thane's mandibles clicked nervously. "Larger than anything we've ever recorded. The entire Sol system is ice, lighting up like a newborn star." The message reached the Galactic Council within hours. Emergency sessions were called. Military fleets began moving toward the sector boundaries, and deep in the archives of a dozen different worlds, ancient computers began processing signals that had been dormant for 4 centuries. Dr. Marcus Chen stood in his laboratory, staring at the data streams flowing across his monitors. He had spent most of his life studying the disappearance of Earth, trying to understand what had happened to his homeworld. Now, for the first time in decades, he was seeing evidence that something was happening in the Sol system. "Computer, analyze signal patterns in subsection Delta 7, he commanded. "Analysis complete. Signals match archived human communication protocols. Language pattern suggests ancient Earth dialects including Mandarin, English, Spanish, Arabic, and Hindi." Marcus felt his hands begin to shake. Play the transmissions. Static filled the laboratory, then cleared to reveal voices speaking in languages he recognized, but hadn't heard in years. The words were distorted, layered over each other, like echoes from a deep cave. We remember the blue sky. We remember the ocean's song. We remember the promise we made. We are coming home. The transmission ended, leaving Marcus alone with the silence. He reached for his communication device with trembling fingers and sent an encrypted message to Commander Cross. Vera received the message while loading cargo on a distant space station. She read it 3 times before the words sank in. Then she abandoned her cargo, ignored the protests of her clients, and set course for Dr. Chen's laboratory at maximum speed. She found the old scientist hunched over his computers, his face illuminated by the glow of scrolling data. Marcus, what is this? What are these signals? I think, Marcus said slowly. They're coming from Earth. That's impossible. Earth is gone. It was destroyed in the war. No. Marcus turned to face her, his eyes bright with possibility. Earth wasn't destroyed. I've been analyzing the historical records for 40 years. The energy signatures from the Great War, the way our planet simply vanished. I think they moved it. Moved a planet? That's beyond impossible. Is it? Humans were always good at the impossible, Vera. We went from horse-drawn carriages to space travel in less than 2 centuries. We survived ice ages and plagues and wars that should have ended us. What if, when faced with total extinction, we found a way to save ourselves? Before Vera could respond, every screen in the laboratory flashed white. New signals were coming, through stronger than before. This time the voices were clear and unmistakably human. To the children of Earth scattered among the stars, we have not forgotten you. To the species of this galaxy who inherited our absence, we return not as conquerors but as gardeners. The seeds we planted in darkness have grown into something beautiful. Soon you will see what humanity becomes when it chooses hope over fear. The message repeated in dozens of languages, both human and alien, but it was the final words that made Vera's heart race. Terra Protocol is now active. Dimensional barriers are dissolving. We are coming home. Across the galaxy, panic began to spread. Military commanders scrambled to position their fleets. Politicians called emergency sessions. Scientists worked frantically to understand technology that seemed impossible. High Arbiter Zelkos stood in his command center, watching tactical displays that showed energy readings beyond his comprehension. What are we facing? He demanded. Unknown, sir, his aide reported. The signals suggest human origin, but the technology involved exceeds our understanding by several centuries. Humans were weak, Zelkos growled. They destroyed themselves because they couldn't handle the challenges of galactic civilization. Perhaps, said a new voice. They didn't destroy themselves. Perhaps they simply went somewhere we couldn't follow. Zelkos turned to see Ambassador Crix approaching his platform. The peaceful diplomats. Blueskin had darkened with concern. You think they're still alive? I think we're about to find out. In the depths of space, reality began to bend. The fabric of the universe stretched and twisted around the Sol system as massive shapes pushed through from somewhere else. They weren't ships in any conventional sense. They were structures the size of moons crafted from materials that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Captain Thane Korvik's patrol ship was the first to witness the emergence. His sensors screamed warnings as space-time itself warped around him. Through his view screen, he watched something impossible unfold. By the Ancient Ones, he whispered. It's a planet. Earth hung in space where it had always belonged, but it was transformed. The blue oceans still sparkled, but now they were crossed by ribbons of light that pulsed with energy. The continents were covered in structures that seemed to grow rather than be built, reaching up toward orbital platforms that defied gravity itself. And surrounding Earth were the ships. Hundreds of them, each one unique but clearly of human design. They moved through space like living things, their hulls shifting and adapting to the cosmic environment around them. Captain, his communications. Officer called out, "We're being hailed." On screen. The face that appeared was unmistakably human, but different. The woman's features were refined, perfected in subtle ways. Her eyes held depths that spoke of centuries of knowledge and growth. When she smiled, it was with the confidence of someone who had seen the universe and found her place in it. "I am Admiral Sarah Morrison of the Earth Collective," she said. "We greet our brothers and sisters who remained among the stars, and we extend peaceful intentions to all species of this galaxy. We have returned not to reclaim what was lost, but to share what we have found." Captain Thane tried to find his voice. Where have you been?" "Learning," Admiral Morrison replied. "Growing. Becoming what we needed to become to survive. We moved our world beyond the barriers of normal space, into a realm where time flows differently and possibility is unlimited. We have spent 400 of your years becoming something new. And now you've returned for conquest?" Admiral Morrison's expression grew sad. "We have returned for healing. This galaxy bears scars from centuries of conflict and exploitation. We offer our knowledge, our technology, and our partnership to any who will accept it. We have learned that strength without wisdom leads only to destruction. On Earth's surface, cities that had once held millions now housed billions, but in harmony with nature rather than despite it. Forests grew through the urban centers, their leaves processing both carbon dioxide and exotic energies that powered the great machines. Humans walked among the trees, but they were no longer entirely human. They had kept their essential humanity, their curiosity, their creativity, their capacity for both love and stubborn determination. But they had enhanced themselves in ways that allowed them to live for centuries, to communicate across vast distances with thought alone, and to understand the fundamental forces of the universe as tools rather than mysteries. Dr. Marcus Chen stood in his laboratory, tears streaming down his face as he watched the impossible made real. His homeworld had returned, and with it, the promise that humanity's story was far from over. Commander Vera Cross sat in her ship's pilot seat, staring at the transformed Earth through her view screen. For the first time in her life, she was looking at home. Not the scattered colonies where humans scratched out an existence on the margins of galactic society, but the place where her species had been born and where they had chosen to grow into something magnificent. The galaxy would never be the same. After 4 centuries of believing that humanity was extinct, the other species now faced a truth that would reshape everything. Humans didn't give up. They adapted. They evolved. They found ways to turn extinction into transformation. And now they were back. Not as the scattered and desperate refugees who had fled during the Great War, but as something new and wonderful and powerful beyond imagination. The age of human exile was ending. The age of human renaissance was about to begin. The return protocol Admiral Sarah Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Harmony, watching as her fleet took positions throughout the Sol system. Each ship was alive in ways that would have seemed impossible to the humans of 4 centuries ago. Their hulls breathed with the rhythm of biological processes, their weapons were tools of creation as much as destruction, and their crews existed, in perfect harmony with their vessels. Through the quantum communication network that connected all humans, Sarah felt the emotions of her people. Excitement at seeing the galaxy again, sadness for the species they had left behind to struggle alone, and determination to make this return something that healed rather than conquered. "Admiral," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving transmission requests from 47 different governments, 300 military commanders, and over 2,000 news organizations. And our response? We invite them all to witness what we have become." Across the galaxy, beings gathered around screens and communication devices to watch something unprecedented unfold. The humans weren't hiding their capabilities or making demands. Instead, they were demonstrating their transformation by healing the wounds the galaxy had inflicted upon itself. High Arbiter Zelko stood in his war room, surrounded by generals and admirals from the Dominion fleet. His scaled hands gripped the edge of the tactical display as he watched human ships move through space with impossible grace. "Sir," General Voss reported, his mechanical voice clicking with electronic stress. Our analysts estimate their technological advancement exceeds ours by at least 5 centuries. Their energy output readings are beyond our comprehension. Then we negotiate, Zelko said through clenched teeth. If we cannot defeat them, we must find a way to coexist. Or, suggested a new voice, you could trust them. Everyone turned to see Ambassador Crix approaching the display. Her blue skin had shifted to a hopeful silver, indicating her emotional state to those who understood her species' color changes. Trust them? General Voss's mechanical parts whirred with agitation. They disappeared for 4 centuries without explanation. They return with impossible technology and pretty words about healing. How do we know this isn't an elaborate deception? Because, Crix said softly, look what they're doing instead of talking. She gestured to the main display, which showed human ships approaching the devastated world of Kepler 442b. The planet had been strip-mined by industrial corporations, its atmosphere poisoned, its oceans turned to toxic sludge. It was one of dozens of worlds that had been sacrificed to feed the galaxy's hunger for resources. The human ships didn't land on the planet. Instead, they positioned themselves in orbit and began to sing. That was the only way to describe the harmonious energy, patterns they projected toward the wounded world, frequencies that resonated with the planet's magnetic field, with the damaged ecosystem, with the very atoms that made up the dying biosphere. Dr. Marcus Chen watched from his laboratory as the impossible unfolded on his screens. The dead oceans of Kepler 442b began to clear. The poisoned atmosphere started filtering itself clean. Plants that had been extinct for 2 centuries began growing again from seeds that had somehow survived in the planet's soil. How? He whispered to himself. The answer came not from his instruments, but from a presence that suddenly filled his mind. It was gentle, warm, and unmistakably human, despite its alien sophistication. We learned to listen to what the universe was trying to teach us. The voice said, every planet, every star, every living thing has its own song. When we help them remember how to sing in harmony, healing becomes as natural as breathing. Who are you? We are the collective. We are what humanity became when we stopped fighting each other and started growing together. Individual consciousness, joined with shared wisdom. Personal identity enhanced by collective knowledge. Marcus felt tears on his cheeks. Is there a place for those of us who stayed behind? For humans who didn't evolve as you did? You are part of us already. You carry the same spark of curiosity and hope that drove us to transform ourselves. We simply learned different songs while we were apart. Commander Vera Cross was closer to the healing of Kepler 442b than any other human descendant. Her cargo ship hung in space just outside the system, and she watched through her view screen as an entire world was restored to life in the span of hours. Her communication system chimed with an incoming message. When she accepted it, she found herself looking at Admiral Morrison. Commander Cross, the Admiral said, we know your story. We know how hard it has been to maintain your humanity while living among species that saw you as a relic of a failed race. It wasn't their fault, Vera replied. Humans had a reputation for being destructive and chaotic. After Earth disappeared, everyone assumed we had destroyed ourselves. And now, Vera looked out at the reborn world spinning peacefully in space. Now I understand why you left. You needed time to become something better than what we were. Not better, Admiral Morrison corrected gently. Simply more aware of our potential. Every human has always carried the ability to heal, to create, to solve problems that seem impossible. We just learned how to do it on a larger scale. What happens? Now, do we rejoin human society? Do we go back to Earth? That choice is yours, but first we have something to ask of you. The galaxy needs to see that cooperation is possible, that different species can work together without conquest or submission. Will you help us demonstrate that? Before Vera could answer, her sensors detected massive fleet movements throughout the galaxy. Military vessels from dozens of species were converging on the Sol system. Some came with peaceful intentions, but others clearly prepared for war. General Voss commanded the largest of the hostile fleets. His augmented body was more machine than flesh, and his philosophy was simple: strength determined survival, and the strong took what they needed from the weak. The return of humanity represented a threat to the order he had helped establish. "All ships prepare for combat operations," he broadcast to his fleet. "These humans may have advanced technology, but they have been isolated for 4 centuries. They cannot match our combined military might." His fleet of 2,000 warships moved toward Earth in battle formation, their weapons powered up, their shields activated, their crews prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history. They never got the chance to fire a shot. As the hostile fleet approached the outer edge of the Sol system, the human ships did something unprecedented. Instead of raising shields or powering weapons, they opened themselves completely. Their hulls became transparent, their energy patterns visible, their intentions as clear as sunlight. Every being in the attacking fleet could suddenly feel what the humans felt: sadness at the approaching violence, hope that it could be avoided, love for the species who saw them as threats rather than potential partners, and underneath it all, absolute confidence in their ability to defend themselves without destroying their attackers. General Voss found his augmented systems struggling to process the flood of emotional information. His mechanical parts could analyze the human technology, but his organic brain was overwhelmed by their empathy. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "our weapons won't lock onto their ships. Every time we try to target them, our systems redirect to empty space." "Override the safeties, fire anyway." "Sir, if we fire without locks, we could hit our own ships." Voss hesitated. In that moment of uncertainty, the human ships moved, not toward the fleet but around it, through it, among it, like dancers performing a choreographed routine. They wove between the warships without triggering a single defensive system, their hulls glowing with patterns that seemed to speak directly to the subconscious minds of every being watching. Admiral Morrison's voice filled the communication channels of every ship in both fleets. "General Voss, we know your fear. You believe that strength comes from the ability to destroy your enemies. But true strength comes from the ability to turn enemies into allies. Watch and learn." The human ships stopped their dance and positioned themselves among the hostile fleet. Then they began to sing again, but this time their song was different. Instead of healing a planet, they were healing something much more damaged: the relationships between species who had spent centuries learning to fear and hate each other. The effect was immediate and profound. Crew members from different species began talking to each other for the first time in years. Old grudges started to seem less important than shared curiosity about what the humans had accomplished. Ships that had come to fight began lowering their weapons and opening communication channels. General Voss felt his augmented systems failing as organic emotions he had tried to suppress began breaking through his mechanical conditioning. For the first time in decades, he remembered what it felt like to hope for something better than eternal conflict. "Stand down," he ordered his fleet. "All ships, stand down." Ambassador Crix watched the transformation from her position with the peaceful coalition fleet. Her skin had shifted to a brilliant gold, expressing joy and amazement at what she was witnessing. "They're not just technologically advanced," she said to her aide. "They've evolved socially and emotionally in ways we never imagined possible." Thank you. Arbiter Zelkos received the reports from multiple sources simultaneously. The human fleet had neutralized the largest military threat in galactic history without firing a single shot. They had demonstrated capabilities that made conventional warfare obsolete. And they had done it all while extending offers of friendship and cooperation to every species present. "Open a channel to Admiral Morrison," he commanded. The human leader appeared on his screen within seconds, her calm expression suggesting she had been expecting his call. "Hi, Arbiter," she said. "We greet you in peace." "What do you want?" Zelkos asked bluntly. "You have the power to conquer the galaxy. Why haven't you simply taken control?" "Because control was never our goal. We left this galaxy because it was destroying itself through endless competition and conflict. We return now because we learned how to live differently. We want to share that knowledge, not impose it. And if we refuse, if we want to maintain our current systems of government and trade, Admiral Morrison smiled sadly. Then you will continue to repeat the same cycles of war and exploitation that have defined galactic civilization for millennia. We won't stop you, but we also won't participate in systems that cause unnecessary suffering. You would create a separate human civilization? We would create space for all civilizations to grow and thrive. The galaxy is vast, High Arbiter. There is room for every species to find their own path to prosperity, without taking that opportunity away from others. Dr. Marcus Chen stood in his laboratory, watching as human ships began spreading throughout the galaxy. But they weren't conquering or colonizing. Instead, they were establishing what they called harmony stations, massive structures that served as hospitals, schools, research centers, and diplomatic meeting places. Any species could visit these stations to learn about human technology, philosophy, and methods of peaceful problem-solving. The humans asked for nothing in return except the opportunity to learn from other species in turn. Commander Vera Cross made her choice 3 days after the Great Fleet stood down. She joined the human collective not by abandoning her individual identity, but by adding her unique perspective to the growing harmony of human consciousness. Her cargo ship was transformed into something beautiful and alive, and she became an ambassador between the humans who had returned and the species who had never left. Her role was to help everyone understand that the galaxy could be something more than a collection of competing civilizations fighting over limited resources. Within a year, the first joint exploration missions launched toward distant galaxies. Humans provided the advanced technology and wisdom they had gained during their isolation. Other species contributed their own knowledge, perspectives, and dreams of discovery. The age of scarcity was ending. The age of abundance had begun, and at the center of it all was a simple truth that humanity had learned during their long exile. The universe was not a zero-sum game where one species' success required another's failure. There was enough space, enough knowledge, enough wonder for everyone to thrive. They just had to be willing to grow beyond the limitations they had imposed on themselves. Earth spun peacefully in its restored orbit, its blue oceans reflecting the light of ships from 1,000 different worlds. In the forests where ancient humans had first looked up at the stars and wondered what was possible, new generations of beings from across the galaxy now worked together to explore questions that none of them could answer alone. The galaxy had spent 4 centuries believing that humanity was extinct. They were wrong. Humanity had simply gone somewhere else to become something magnificent. And now they were back, not as conquerors or refugees, but as gardeners ready to help the galaxy bloom into something worthy of the infinite cosmos that surrounded them all.